Hi there, future teacher. Welcome to your study guide for the GACE 735, Testlet 503, Foundations and Professional Knowledge. This is part of Georgia's Special Education General Curriculum P through 12 certification exam. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a refresher of the critical knowledge you need to pass. We'll cover the legal and philosophical foundations of special education and human development with disability implications. Let's get into it. Quick note before we begin. We put together a free study guide workbook that goes along with this video. It has all the key terms, comparison tables, practice questions, and space for your own notes. Grab your free copy from the link in the description below. This video is presented by TeacherPreps.com. Our platform includes a complete study guide for every objective on the GACE 735, full-length timed practice tests that mirror the real exam, vocabulary exercises, and constructed response practice with AI scoring. It's free to get started. All right, that was our plug. For the rest of this video, it's go time. Grab your pen and paper, and let's begin. First, let's understand Testlet 503. This testlet has 40 selected response questions, and you'll have 60 minutes to complete it. It accounts for 40% of your total GACE 735 score, so this is a high-stakes section. There are 4 objectives within this testlet. Objective 1 covers philosophical, professional, and legal foundations. Objective 2 covers human development and disability implications. Objective 3 is collaborative partnerships, and Objective 4 is referral and IEP planning. In this video, we're going to deep dive into Objectives 1 and 2. Let's start with Objective 1, philosophical, professional, and legal foundations. This objective tests your knowledge of the history, laws, court cases, and ethical standards that define special education in the United States. This is foundational knowledge that every Georgia special education teacher P through 12 must master. You need to understand the historical evolution of special education. Before the 1960s, most individuals with disabilities were placed in large institutions with minimal education or treatment, a period known as institutionalization. The normalization movement emerged in the 1960s and 1970s, advocating that people with disabilities should live and learn in conditions as close to typical as possible. This paved the way for the inclusion movement, which holds that students with disabilities should be educated alongside their non-disabled peers in general education classrooms with appropriate supports and services. On your exam, questions about this timeline are asking you to trace the shift from segregation to integration to inclusion. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, is the cornerstone federal law you must know inside and out. IDEA is built on 6 core principles. First, free appropriate public education, or FAPE, meaning every eligible child receives special education and related services at no cost to the family. Second, least restrictive environment, or LRE, meaning children with disabilities are educated with non-disabled peers to the maximum extent appropriate. Third, appropriate evaluation, meaning a full, individualized, non-discriminatory assessment before any placement decision. Fourth, the Individualized Education Program, or IEP, a legally binding document that spells out the child's present levels, goals, services, and accommodations. Fifth, parent participation, meaning parents are equal members of the IEP team with rights to be informed and involved at every step. And sixth, procedural safeguards, which protect the rights of both the child and the family, including prior written notice, informed consent, and the right to due process hearings. Beyond IDEA, you need to know several other federal laws and landmark court cases. The Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, prohibits discrimination based on disability in all areas of public life. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act requires accommodations for individuals with disabilities in any program receiving federal funds. FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, protects the confidentiality of student records. And ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, holds schools accountable for the academic progress of students with disabilities. For court cases, Brown v. Board of Education in 1954 established that separate is not equal, setting the legal foundation for disability rights. PARC v. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1972 established the right of children with intellectual disabilities to a free public education. Mills versus Board of Education in 1972 extended that right to all children with disabilities regardless of disability type. And Endrew F. v. Douglas County in 2017 raised the standard for FAPE, ruling that IEPs must be reasonably calculated to enable a child to make progress appropriate in light of the child's circumstances. Objective 1 also covers professional ethics and responsibilities. The Council for Exceptional Children, or CEC, Code of Ethics sets the professional standards for special educators. Key principles include maintaining high expectations for all students with disabilities, using evidence-based practices, and engaging in continuous professional development. Due process is the legal mechanism that ensures fair treatment. Parents can file a due process complaint if they disagree with identification, evaluation, placement, or the provision of FAPE. Confidentiality means student records and disability information are shared only with authorized personnel on a need-to-know basis. On your exam, ethics questions often present a scenario and ask which action best aligns with professional standards. Let's try a practice question for Objective 1. A special education teacher in Georgia receives a request from a general education colleague to share a student's disability diagnosis and IEP goals during a casual conversation in the teacher's lounge. Which response best aligns with legal and ethical obligations? Option A. Share the information since the general education teacher works with the student daily. Option B. Provide a brief summary of the diagnosis but withhold specific IEP goals. Option C. Decline and explain that disability information must be discussed in a confidential setting with authorized team members only. Option D. Suggest the colleague review the student's cumulative file independently in the main office. The correct answer is C. Decline and explain that disability information must be discussed in a confidential setting with authorized team members only. Under FERPA and IDEA, student disability information is protected and may only be shared with individuals who have a legitimate educational need to know, and only in appropriate confidential settings. Option A violates confidentiality regardless of the colleague's role. Option B still discloses protected information in an inappropriate setting. And Option D may grant access without proper authorization procedures. Always protect student confidentiality first. Now let's move into Objective 2, Human Development and Disability Implications. This objective tests your understanding of how children and adolescents develop across the P through 12 span, the 13 disability categories under IDEA, and how various disabilities impact learning, behavior, and social functioning. This is where theory meets the real students in your classroom. You need to understand 4 developmental domains across the entire P through 12 age range. The cognitive domain covers thinking, reasoning, problem-solving, and memory. Piaget's stages are key here. Sensoromotor from birth to age 2, pre-operational from 2 to 7, concrete operational from 7 to 11, and formal operational from age 11 onward. The language domain includes receptive language, which is understanding, and expressive language, which is producing speech. Key milestones include babbling around 6 months, first words near 12 months, and complex sentences by age 5. The social-emotional domain covers attachment, self-regulation, peer relationships, and emotional understanding. Erikson's stages are relevant here, especially trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame, and identity versus role confusion for adolescents. The physical domain includes gross motor skills like running and jumping, and fine motor skills like writing and manipulating objects. On test day, questions may ask you to identify whether a behavior is age-appropriate or represents a developmental concern. IDEA defines 13 disability categories, and you should know the key characteristics of each. Let me walk through them in groups. The first group includes autism, characterized by social communication challenges and restricted repetitive behaviors. Deafblindness, a combination of hearing and vision loss requiring specialized support. Deafness, a hearing loss so severe the child cannot process linguistic information through hearing. And hearing impairment, a hearing loss that adversely affects educational performance but is not as severe as deafness. The second group includes intellectual disability, significant limitations, in intellectual functioning and adaptive behavior. Specific learning disability, a disorder in one or more basic psychological processes affecting reading, writing, or math, such as dyslexia or dyscalculia. Multiple disabilities, two or more concurrent impairments that cannot be accommodated by a single program. And orthopedic impairment, a severe physical disability that adversely affects educational performance. The third group includes other health impairment, which covers conditions like ADHD, epilepsy, or diabetes that limit strength, vitality, or alertness. Emotional disturbance, a condition involving persistent behavioral or emotional responses that adversely affect educational performance. Speech or language impairment, a communication disorder such as stuttering or a voice disorder. Traumatic brain injury, an acquired brain injury caused by an external force. And visual impairment, including blindness, a vision problem that even with correction adversely affects learning. The exam will test how disabilities impact functioning across multiple areas. In the learning domain, disabilities may affect information processing, memory, attention, and the ability to generalize skills from one setting to another. A student with a specific learning disability in reading may have strong verbal comprehension, but struggle significantly with decoding print. In the behavioral domain, some disabilities are associated with challenges in self-regulation, impulse control, and response to frustration. Functional behavioral assessment identifies the purpose behind challenging behaviors, whether the student is seeking attention, escaping a task, or accessing a preferred item. In the social domain, disabilities can affect the ability to read social cues, initiate and maintain friendships, and navigate group dynamics. Students with autism spectrum disorder, for example, may need explicit instruction in social skills that neurotypical peers acquire naturally. On the exam, look for answers that address the specific functional impact rather than general statements about a disability category. Here's a practice question for Objective 2. A 7th grade student with an intellectual disability consistently demonstrates difficulty applying math skills learned in the classroom to real-world situations, such as making change at the school store. Which characteristic of intellectual disability does this scenario best illustrate? Option A, deficits in abstract reasoning ability. Option B, challenges with generalization of learned skills. Option C, limitations in short-term memory capacity. Option D, difficulty with receptive language processing. The correct answer is B, challenges with generalization of learned skills. Generalization refers to the ability to apply a skill learned in one context to a new, different context. Students with intellectual disability frequently struggle with this. The student can perform the math in class, but cannot transfer that skill to making change at the store. Option A, abstract reasoning, would involve difficulty understanding concepts like fractions or probability, not applying known skills. Option C, short-term memory, would mean forgetting steps during the task itself. And Option D, receptive language, would involve difficulty understanding verbal instructions, which is not what this scenario describes. When the issue is applying a known skill to a new setting, the answer is generalization. Great work covering the first two objectives of GACE 735, Testlet 503. But here's the thing. What we just covered, philosophical, professional, and legal foundations and human development and disability implications, is only half of this testlet. You still need to master Objective 3, Collaborative Partnerships, which covers working with families, paraprofessionals, related service providers, and community agencies. And Objective 4, Referral and IEP Planning, which covers the referral process, eligibility determination, IEP development, and transition planning. Without those two objectives, you're walking into Test A with half the preparation you need for this testlet. The complete study guide covering all 4 objectives, plus full-length timed practice tests, is available right now at TeacherPreps.com. Link in the description. Good luck, future teacher.